Night hangs over the operations center. Rows of screens glow in the darkness. Satellite feeds flicker. Drone cameras sweep across miles of desert. Radar signals pulse in silent waves. Somewhere in that endless stream of data, something changes. A pattern shifts. A vehicle moves where it shouldn't. A signal appears for only a few seconds. No human analyst notices it, but the algorithm does. Within milliseconds, a red marker appears on the command screen. Possible target detected. Across the room, an officer leans forward. The system begins pulling in more data. Thermal imagery, movement history, communications intercepts. In seconds, the machine builds a picture that would once have taken analysts hours to assemble. Then a probability score appears. High confidence. The room grows quiet. Because somewhere beneath that digital marker, there might be a missile launcher, or a military convoy, or a building full of civilians. The system has done its job. Now, the decision belongs to the human staring at the screen. One command, one strike, one moment where a machine's calculation meets human judgment. And in modern warfare, those moments are happening faster than ever before. For most of human history, war has been fought with weapons, swords, cannons, bombs, missiles. But in the 21st century, something new has entered the battlefield, not a weapon, an intelligence. In recent months, the United States military confirmed that it is using advanced artificial intelligence tools during its conflict with Iran. These systems are not flying fighter jets or pulling triggers. Instead, they are doing something just as powerful. They are helping commanders understand the battlefield faster than ever before. Modern war generates an overwhelming flood of information. High-resolution satellite imagery arrives constantly from orbit. Long-range drones circle above conflict zones, streaming live video 24 hours a day. Electronic sensors capture fragments of radio transmissions, radar signals, and encrypted communications. Every minute produces more data than a team of human analysts could ever process alone. In past wars, intelligence officers might spend hours, sometimes even days, sorting through reports, photographs, and intercepted messages. By the time they finished their analysis, the situation on the ground could already be changing. Artificial intelligence changes that equation. According to the commander of U.S. Central Command, these systems allow military leaders to sift through massive volumes of data in seconds, cutting through the noise so they can make decisions faster than their adversaries. Patterns appear. Movements are tracked. Anomalies are flagged instantly. The battlefield becomes a vast network of information, one that algorithms can scan faster than any human mind. Supporters of the technology argue that speed saves lives. The faster commanders can understand what is happening, the faster they can respond to threats. But critics see something more troubling. Because once machines begin identifying targets, the line between human judgment and machine suggestion begins to blur. And on a battlefield where seconds matter, that line may disappear entirely. Technology promises clarity. But war is never clean. And the consequences of these new systems are already being measured not in lines of code, but in human lives. Since the conflict began, airstrikes across Iran have killed more than 1,300 people, according to reports from the region. Entire neighborhoods have been damaged, critical infrastructure has been struck, oil depots have burned through the night sky, markets that once buzzed with civilians have been reduced to shattered concrete and twisted metal. Among the most devastating incidents was the bombing of a school in southern Iran. More than 170 people were killed, most of them children. The strike sent shockwaves far beyond the battlefield. Families searched through rubble for survivors. Emergency crews worked through the night, and almost immediately, a question began to circulate among human rights organizations and military analysts around the world. How was that target identified? Because in modern warfare, a single bombing is rarely the result of a single decision. Targets are tracked, patterns are analyzed, signals are interpreted, data moves through complex systems before a missile ever leaves the ground. Now, with artificial intelligence increasingly involved in processing that data, some experts fear that mistakes could happen faster than ever before. Supporters of the technology insist the system still has a safeguard. A human being always makes the final decision. Military officials have emphasized that AI does not choose what to shoot, people do. But critics argue that the reality may be far more complicated. Because when an algorithm presents a target with high confidence and commanders must act within seconds, the pressure to trust the machine becomes almost impossible to resist. And that raises a question that militaries around the world are only beginning to confront. When artificial intelligence helps identify a target and civilians are killed, who is responsible? The officer who approved the strike, the engineers who built the system, or the machine that found the target in the first place? As the technology spreads across modern battlefields, that question is becoming harder and more urgent to answer. Artificial intelligence did not suddenly appear on the battlefield. Its arrival was gradual, quiet, almost invisible. For decades, militaries around the world have relied on technology to gain an advantage in war. Radar once allowed ships to detect enemies hidden in darkness. Satellites later made it possible to watch entire continents from orbit. Precision-guided missiles gave commanders the ability to strike targets with extraordinary accuracy. Each innovation changed the speed and scale of warfare. But artificial intelligence changes something deeper. It changes how decisions are made. In earlier wars, information moved slowly. A reconnaissance aircraft might photograph enemy positions. Analysts would study the images. Reports would be written. Commanders would meet, debate the intelligence, and eventually decide on a course of action. That entire process could take hours, sometimes days. Today, the battlefield moves far too fast for that kind of pace. Modern conflicts generate a constant storm of data, thousands of drone flights, satellite imagery updated by the minute, electronic signals bouncing through the air, radio transmissions, vehicle movements, heat signatures. Human analysts cannot watch every video feed or interpret every signal. The amount of information is simply too large. This is where artificial intelligence enters the picture. Instead of replacing human analysts, AI systems act as powerful filters. They scan enormous data streams, searching for patterns that might indicate military activity. A group of vehicles moving together, a radar signal switching on briefly, a convoy stopping near a suspected missile site. To a human observer, these details might appear insignificant, but an algorithm can compare them against millions of previous observations. Within seconds, it can detect patterns that would otherwise remain hidden. The system then flags those findings for military analysts, possible targets, suspicious movements, unusual activity. In this way, artificial intelligence becomes something new in warfare, not a weapon itself, but a guide for weapons. A tool that helps decide where attention should go, where surveillance should focus, and eventually, where strikes might occur. Supporters of the technology argue that this capability makes military operations more precise. If the right target can be identified faster, they say, fewer mistakes will occur. But critics warn that turning algorithms into battlefield analysts creates a new kind of danger. Because when machines begin shaping military decisions, the pace of war accelerates. Faster analysis, faster targeting, faster strikes, and in a conflict where seconds can determine life or death, speed may become the most powerful weapon of all. The modern battlefield is not defined only by bombs and missiles. It is defined by information. Every second of a modern conflict produces a staggering amount of data. Satellites orbiting hundreds of kilometers above Earth capture detailed images of roads, airfields, and military bases. High-altitude surveillance drones circle silently for hours, watching every vehicle that enters or leaves a compound. Ground sensors detect vibrations from passing convoys. Electronic intelligence systems monitor radio signals moving through the air, even small. Tactical drones carried by soldiers stream video back to command centers. Individually, each source of information is valuable. Together, they create something overwhelming. A constant flood of data, hundreds of video feeds, thousands of images, millions of electronic signals. For intelligence officers, the challenge is no longer finding information. It is understanding it fast enough. During earlier conflicts, intelligence teams could analyze information at a measured pace. Analysts studied photographs, listened to intercepted communications, compared reports from different sources. They built a picture of the battlefield piece by piece. But modern warfare does not move slowly. A missile launcher might appear for only a few minutes before disappearing again. A convoy might change direction without warning. A drone operator watching a single video feed might miss the moment entirely. When information moves this quickly, human analysis alone begins to fall behind. And this is exactly the problem artificial intelligence was designed to solve. AI systems can process enormous volumes of information almost instantly. They scan satellite imagery for subtle changes in terrain. They track movement patterns across hundreds of drone feeds. They compare signals and activity across vast geographic areas. What once required hours of manual analysis can now happen in seconds. According to U.S. military officials, these systems allow analysts and commanders to process data at a speed that was previously impossible. The algorithm highlights what matters: a vehicle appearing repeatedly near sensitive infrastructure, an unusual pattern of movement around a suspected weapons site, a signal that appears only briefly before vanishing. Instead of searching blindly through endless streams of information, human analysts can focus their attention where the system believes something important is happening. Supporters argue this dramatically improves battlefield awareness. The faster commanders understand the situation, the faster they can respond. But there is also a hidden danger in relying on machines to filter reality. Because once an algorithm decides what information is important, it also decides what information can be ignored. And on a battlefield where every decision carries enormous consequences, even the smallest oversight can change everything. Despite the growing role of artificial intelligence on the battlefield, the U.S. military insists on one critical rule. A machine may analyze the data, a machine may highlight the target, but the final decision must always belong to a human. Military officials describe this principle as human in the loop. The algorithm recommends, the human decides. According to U.S. Central Command, AI systems are designed to assist warfighters by rapidly processing information, but people still determine when, what, and whether to strike. In theory, this safeguard protects against the dangers of fully automated warfare. A computer might identify a possible missile launcher, but before any strike happens, an officer must review the intelligence. Satellite imagery, drone footage, movement patterns, signals, intelligence. The human commander weighs the evidence and only then authorizes the attack. At least, that is how the system is supposed to work. In reality, modern warfare creates enormous pressure on decision-makers. Battles unfold at extraordinary speed. Missile systems can launch within minutes. Mobile launchers can disappear before aircraft even reach the area. Commanders often have only seconds to act. And in those moments, the algorithm may already have done the analysis. It has compared thousands of previous patterns, cross-referenced signals, tracked movements across hours of surveillance. Then it presents its conclusion: high probability target. To a human officer watching the screen, the machine's confidence carries enormous weight, because behind that single percentage lies an ocean of data no individual could ever process alone. Over time, this dynamic can subtly change how decisions are made. Instead of questioning the machine's analysis, commanders may begin to rely on it, not because they are careless, but because the system appears faster, more informed, and more certain. Critics warn that this is where the danger begins, when humans remain technically in control, but psychologically begin to trust the machine. Because in the heat of war, when seconds matter and lives are at stake, few people are willing to ignore a system that claims it has already found the answer. And if the algorithm is wrong, that mistake can travel from machine to missile in a matter of minutes. Every war leaves scars, cities burn, buildings collapse, lives are shattered in ways statistics can never fully describe. But the war unfolding across Iran has raised a particularly troubling question. What happens when the systems designed to make warfare more precise still lead to devastating civilian losses? Since the beginning of the conflict, the scale of destruction has been enormous. Across the country, nearly 20,000 civilian buildings have been damaged by airstrikes and bombardment. Entire blocks of homes reduced to rubble. Markets once crowded with vendors, now silent beneath broken concrete. Sports venues, schools, and public gathering places struck during the course of the fighting. Even critical medical infrastructure has not been spared. According to relief organizations, 77 healthcare facilities have been damaged or destroyed during the campaign. Hospitals, clinics, emergency response centers, places meant to save lives, caught in the path of modern warfare. Strikes have also hit oil depots and street markets. In one case, a water desalination plant, an essential source of clean drinking water, was damaged during the bombardment. Each attack raises difficult questions about how targets are selected. Because in theory, modern military technology is supposed to reduce civilian harm. Precision-guided weapons can strike individual buildings. Advanced surveillance systems can monitor targets for days before an attack. Artificial intelligence can analyze patterns and movement in ways human analysts once could not. The promise of this technology is simple: greater precision, fewer mistakes. But war rarely unfolds according to theory. Cities are crowded and chaotic. Military equipment can be hidden among civilian structures. A vehicle that appears suspicious from the air might belong to a family, not a fighter. And once a strike has been launched, there is no undoing it. For critics of AI-assisted warfare, these incidents reveal the danger of accelerating the pace of military decision-making. When machines help identify targets faster, the entire chain of events moves faster as well. Detection, analysis, approval, strike. And when that process compresses into minutes or even seconds, there may be less time to ask the most important question of all. Are we absolutely certain about what we are seeing? The debate over artificial intelligence in warfare is not happening only inside military headquarters. It is also unfolding thousands of miles away, in the offices of Silicon Valley. For decades, governments controlled the technologies that defined war: fighter jets, missile systems, radar networks. These were developed inside defense laboratories and military contractors. But artificial intelligence is different. Many of the world's most powerful AI systems are being built not by governments, but by private technology companies, software engineers, startup founders, researchers working in glass-walled offices far removed from any battlefield. And many of them are deeply uncomfortable with the idea that their work could become part of modern warfare. Some AI companies have attempted to draw a line. One firm that previously held a contract with the Pentagon insisted that its models should not be used for fully autonomous weapons or mass surveillance. To the engineers behind the technology, this was a moral boundary. Artificial intelligence could help analyze data. It could assist human decision-making, but it should never become a system that independently decides who lives and who dies. The U.S. government saw the issue differently. As the conflict with Iran intensified, officials made it clear that they would not allow private companies to dictate how military technology could be used. When the AI company resisted, the dispute escalated dramatically. The firm was labeled a potential supply chain risk, effectively cutting it off from doing business with government agencies. Behind the scenes, the message was unmistakable. The United States military believes it cannot afford to fall behind in the race for artificial intelligence. Not when rival nations are developing their own systems, not when future wars may be decided by whoever processes information the fastest. For government leaders, the question is strategic. For many engineers, it is ethical. Should the technologies shaping the future of humanity also shape the future of warfare? And if private companies refuse to build those systems, will governments simply build them anyway? As the power of artificial intelligence continues to grow, that conflict between innovation and responsibility is only beginning. As artificial intelligence begins shaping modern warfare, the rest of the world is watching closely. Because what is happening in one conflict today may become the global standard tomorrow. Military planners across multiple countries are studying the rise of AI-assisted warfare. Some see it as the next inevitable step in military evolution. Others see something far more dangerous. Among the most vocal Critics has been China, which has publicly warned about the risks of deploying artificial intelligence without strict limits. Chinese defense officials have cautioned that the unrestricted military use of AI could erode the ethical safeguards that traditionally govern war. Their concern is not only about weapons, it is about control. When algorithms begin analyzing targets, prioritizing threats, and shaping battlefield decisions, human authority may gradually weaken, step by step, decision by decision, until the speed of machines begins to dictate the pace of war itself. Chinese officials have warned that allowing algorithms to influence life and death decisions could lead to a future where warfare spirals beyond human control. A future where machines react faster than diplomacy, faster than caution, faster than the fragile systems designed to prevent catastrophic escalation. Some analysts have even drawn comparisons to a familiar science fiction nightmare, the idea of autonomous systems making military decisions without meaningful human oversight. A scenario once imagined in films like The Terminator, where a self-aware defense network launches a nuclear apocalypse. For now, that future remains fiction. But the technology that could make such scenarios possible is advancing every year. And as nations race to develop faster and more powerful artificial intelligence, a new global arms race may already be underway, not for bigger bombs, but for smarter machines. Artificial intelligence is no longer a theory of future warfare. It is already here, not in the form of robotic armies or autonomous killing machines, but as something quieter and far more subtle. A system that watches, analyzes, suggests, and increasingly influences the decisions that shape the battlefield. Across modern conflicts, AI systems are already scanning satellite imagery, tracking vehicle movements, and filtering intelligence from thousands of sensors at once. They identify patterns humans might miss. They process information at speeds no human mind can match. And with every year that passes, those systems grow more capable, more accurate, more autonomous. For military planners, the attraction is obvious. War has always favored those who can see the battlefield most clearly. In ancient times, scouts rode ahead of armies to report what lay beyond the next hill. In the 20th century, radar allowed ships and aircraft to detect enemies hidden in darkness. Today, artificial intelligence promises something even more powerful. A battlefield where nothing remains hidden for long, where every movement can be tracked, every signal detected, every anomaly identified. In such a world, commanders would possess unprecedented awareness of the enemy. Supporters believe this could make warfare more controlled, even more precise. If threats can be identified earlier, they argue strikes can be more targeted, mistakes can be reduced. Lives, both military and civilian, might be saved. But critics warn that technological advantages rarely remain one-sided for long. If one nation adopts artificial intelligence to accelerate its battlefield decisions, others will inevitably follow. No military power can afford to fall behind. And once that race begins, it becomes almost impossible to stop. Each country pushing its systems faster, smarter, more automated. The logic of competition begins to take over. Because if your opponent can make decisions in seconds, waiting minutes may already be too slow. This is how technological revolutions in warfare often unfold. One breakthrough, followed by another, until suddenly the entire character of war has changed. And by the time the world realizes what has happened, there is no easy way to turn back. For now, the world still believes one thing, that humans remain in control. Inside command centers, officers still review the intelligence. They still authorize the strikes. They still carry the responsibility for every decision. Artificial intelligence may analyze the battlefield, but it does not officially decide who lives and who dies. Not yet. Military leaders insist the technology is only a tool, a system designed to help people understand war more clearly, to process information faster, to identify threats earlier, to give commanders the advantage of time in a world where time is disappearing. But history suggests that technology rarely stops where it begins. Every major innovation in warfare has eventually pushed the limits of what humans are willing to allow. Aircraft began as reconnaissance tools. Later, they carried bombs. Computers began as machines for calculations. Later, they guided missiles across continents. Artificial intelligence may follow the same path. Today, it analyzes data. Tomorrow, it may suggest targets. One day, it may be trusted to make decisions entirely on its own. And if that arrives, the nature of warfare could change in ways humanity has never faced before. Not because machines hate, not because they seek destruction, but because they will be doing exactly what they were designed to do: processing information, calculating outcomes, executing instructions, faster than any human ever could. For now, the final decision still belongs to people. A human hand still rests on the command, but every year the machines grow smarter, faster, more capable, and the question that once belonged only to science fiction is now quietly entering the real world. In the wars of the future, how much control will humanity still have?